first Goosebumps in 2015 was a mild surprise, and it served as a good tribute to the book series and the original show. It had its own story, but it incorporated a lot of elements from the novels and had a fun performance from Jack Black. It was nothing special, but it was serviceable enough for a kids movie. I was a bit surprised when they announced a sequel with an entirely new cast, a similar story, and almost no Jack Black. But can it also be a surprise success?
Well, if you look at the reviews and box office, Goosebumps 2 was definitely a step down from the predecessor, featuring a new director with Ari Sandel replacing Rob Letterman and slashing the budget in half. This was very much a rushed sequel, akin to those cheap sequels that would be commonly released in the 1980s. Nowadays, it seems like sequels try to take their time a little more and have the same creative teams, but I guess after Rob Letterman got too busy with Detective Pikachu, it didn't really make sense to wait around for his schedule to be open. I mean, the first Goosebumps did well, but didn't really scream for a sequel. If Sony wanted to cash in, they had to do it fast. So for the rush production, lesser budget, and new cast, this seems almost destined to be a complete failure. But actually, I don't think this one is that bad. I don't really mind the new characters, but I prefer the actors from the previous film. But they got the kid from It, and Chris Parnell. Wendy McLendon-Covey is in this film, and I've loved her so much in The Goldberg, so I'm always happy to see her pop up somewhere else, and she's the highlight of this one. The only disappointment is the lack of Jack Black. It was announced pretty late that he wouldn't end up appearing, and since I was one of the few people who actually saw this the night it was released, I remember how the reports were still saying he wasn't gonna be in the sequel. Then, to my surprise, he was in it. Sort of. He only appears at the end, after the climax has already happened. Sure, they make it seem like he's preparing to go out and save this town from another Goosebumps incident, but they make a joke about how he came too late, and what worked last time doesn't necessarily work this time. They shoved him in at the last second, and it feels very awkward. If he was only going to make this minimal of an appearance, then why have him at all? However, like I said, the other characters at least get the job done, even if it's a lesser performance. Honestly, this whole movie feels like what I expected from the first movie, just an overall dumb, cheesy, and forgettable kids film that goes by quick and has a few jokes. I guess the first one just had a bigger impression on me because it felt like a dedicated tribute to the Goosebumps franchise. This movie feels much more in tone with the campy, lower-budget TV series. Besides the practical stuff, the effects are even less well done than the first movie. Maybe that's because it was mainly done by Sony Animation. So maybe getting teams who are used to fully animated movies rather than making realistic effects blended with live action isn't the best idea. It's not as funny as the first movie, the characters are fine but not as interesting, and it doesn't have that original of a story. Slappy returns, and instead of all the Goosebumps books being opened, it's instead just one manuscript, an unproduced lost novel that R.L. Stine kept hidden in this town. Because Slappy is the main character, he comes alive just like the first movie, but the rules kind of change after this. He has magical powers and can bring all the costumes and Halloween decorations to life, and after that, everything kind of follows the same plot line as the previous film. Even the rules don't really make sense, like they can open the books and suck up everything that's supernatural, but the first movie did that because the evil stuff came from the books. In this movie, Slappy is creating it from what's already existing on Earth. How can you suck up stuff that's already on Earth into a book that they never originated from? I just don't really understand that. The only thing that made me happy was when the Haunted Mask was brought into it, because that was always the Goosebumps episodes I remembered best. Sometimes there's a cool design, but for the most part, it doesn't have much going for it. It's a simple, quick movie that has the Halloween spirit. I'm always happy to see another kids movie set around Halloween, rather than just being a softer horror movie. Because compared to Christmas, we don't nearly have enough Halloween films. Come on, there's so many other holidays to exploit with children's cinema. It's funny how Sony Animation has become the main hub for children's horror and Halloween movies. I guess they just found their calling. How the first movie surprised me by being much better than it needed to be, this one surprised me by not being as awful as a cheap sequel like this usually is. For now, I'd just leave Goosebumps alone, maybe do an animated TV show, but I don't think we need any more sequels with last-second Jack Black cameos and less than stellar effects. Thanks to Ryan for this Patreon request, and thanks to all my Patreon supporters. For only $7, you can get your own monthly movie review, ask me to review anything I haven't already. There's also other perks like blogs, exclusive videos, and early access. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and thanks so much for watching this video.